is a lot like magic in that magicians didn't, the really practiced magicians didn't want to give you their secrets.
Hmm.
And, that's started to change somewhat. But, the one thing that I notice about you, you have several modalities that you do, and yet you teach all of them.
Yeah.
And you don't try to hold on to any of them. And that's an important thing. And maybe you can tell us why that's important to you and how that's came about for you.
Well, I think that the reason that I'm so interested in sharing is because I really feel like um, the information is not mine.
Oh, it isn't. Yeah.
It's come to me and comes through me, and it's meant to be shared with everyone. And so I don't own any of it, and I want to be able to give back. And so all of the things and all of the tools and all the teachers and all the lessons and all those things that I've been able to grow from, I want to be able to share. And regardless of, I have had people say, you share too much, or you ought to not tell everybody everything because, whatever. I just don't operate that way. I just really feel deep within me that, the things that come to me are meant to come through me. And when they come through me, then I'm able to share that with 10 other people, and they share it, and they share it, and that's the ripple effect that changes our world.
It's exactly right.
And
Yeah.
that's my goal is to just to be of service in whatever way I'm meant. So if I can do that by offering some guidance or support or information or a class or a workshop, then that's what I'm meant to do.
Well, the one thing that's pretty recognizable with you is that you have a servant's heart. And, as far as the spiritual path is concerned, without that servant's heart, it's hard to go very far on that path.
Right.
At some
Right.
at some point, you really have to take other people into consideration and not the me stuff so much. The
Right. And I do feel that it's, I've always felt like I've meant to be of service in lots of different ways, even since I was a young kid. And I didn't always know exactly what that looked like. And, even 12 years ago, I didn't know exactly what it looked like. And today, I don't know what 10 years from now is going to look
Oh,
like.
for
But
sure, yeah,
what I do know is how I feel. And,
absolutely.
and, and that is that's what guides me.
Well, one of the really big problems in the world is, and we've seen it play out in Wall Street and in the greed with the bankers and so forth. That all comes very much out of narcissism or deep rooted selfish self-centeredness. And the rub with all of that is that we were created self-centered. I've never met anybody who, on some level, isn't self-centered,
Right.
but it's the selfish part that needs to be taken out of there. When I think about the work that I do with others, I, I have a self-centered motive in that. When I see somebody blossom and their life get better, there's a real payoff in that for me in a feeling level and in a self-esteem level. And so, my self-centeredness really has not gone anywhere. It just kind of like gets used for good rather than harm.
Well, and I think too, it's in the way you're channeling it. One of the things that I've talked to a lot of my students about is that as I've grown and evolved and kind of come to understand myself a little bit more, what I found is that the more I am centered in who I am, and the more clear I am about who that is, then the less effect it has on me what other people's opinions are, good or not. And so I would say that, I try to maintain my energy at a level that is the highest level that I can maintain. And there isn't a number to that. But when people give me praise, or they love me, or oh my God, I can't live without you, or whatever, that's great. That's nice to hear. Of course, they can live without me, but that positive reinforcement is certainly nice. But it doesn't shift who I am, because I already know within me innately who I am. And on the other side of that, if someone has, oh, I didn't like your class, or you're a terrible teacher, or you don't really know what you're talking about, or you're crazy, psychics are evil, or
Oh,
whatever,
right. And there's plenty
that
of that.
doesn't shift me the other way either, because I know who I am. And so my goal is always to maintain that level of awareness within me. And when when it starts to shift one direction or the other, I try to be really present with that to see what's going on in me. And so that's something that for me that's kind of how I monitor or tell where I'm at. And that's been very helpful for me.
Sure, and we're back at talking, really in very concrete terms about knowing what our energy or our power is and using it rightly.
Right.
The tough part about the compliments, like you say, they can feel good, but the problem is if you're going to take those, you got to be willing to take the other end too, because they don't come by themselves.
Right. Yeah, it's a harmony.
Oh, absolutely. There's that duality that we live in, and it's just going to be there. So you're a medium, and you also teach mediumship. What does that term medium mean to you?
Well, immediately I
me.
tend to be the telephone, the connector between the spirit world and the physical world.
Right.
But only for a short time. So I really do believe that if we have loved ones that have passed, that we ourselves can connect with them if we're willing to and desire to. And so I certainly am grateful and appreciate the ability to be able to be of service to people and make that connection for them. But again, the teaching aspect of it is I don't want to have people have to come to me in order to do something that they really can learn to do for themselves.
Can and should be, right?
So I become the telephone for them until they get to a place where they're ready to learn it and to tap into that and do that themselves. And that's an important part of my work. Again, I'm leaving on Thursday to speak at the Parents of Murdered Children's National Conference, and I go there and I teach workshops on mediumship and how to connect with their deceased loved ones. And of course, certainly, I could just see them all as clients and make a bunch of money and do it that way, but that's
right.
not what is important to me. It's giving them that awareness that, you know what, they're right there, and this is a sign, and this is a sign, and this is a sign, and when they recognize that, it puts their heart at ease. So it's real important for me to be able to share that with them.
Hope you'll pardon me with the cough. I've been plagued. I pretty much was getting over it today, and it seems to be back here this evening. I apologize for that.
No problem.
Excuse me. Yeah, that was one of the things I wanted to talk about. You actually co-authored a book around that same thing. I think it's called Find Me, and you're involved with an organization called Find Me, and also with Canine Search and Rescue, SAR. How about give us an idea of what that's all about? That's a pretty neat thing you're doing there.
Yeah, you're a good researcher. I got to tell you, you know all kinds of things about me.
Well, that's my job.
Yeah, Find Me is a nonprofit organization, and we have I think 95 psychics all across the world now, along with about 30 search and rescue animals, and police detectives, not only retired, but then also we work with police all over the world, depending on what kind of case we're working or which case we're working at the time. And so we wrote a book about 3 or 4 years ago, just on the way that our organization works. So as psychic mediums, the retired detective is the one that created this organization, and he just thought, if psychics can help give any extra pieces to the puzzle, then why aren't we using them? And so he created this organization, and what we do is we either work with the police department themselves or with family members, and we work cases to give them, clues, give them suspects' names. Sometimes we're required to offer GPS coordinates for where suspects can be found or where bodies can be found.
You're able to give GPS coordinates?
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
We are actually required to within our organization now. So.
Well, how do you go about doing that? That's interesting.
It's challenging, actually. As a medium in the work that I typically do, if I have a client sitting across from me whose mother has passed, I will tap into the energy of that client, and the mother's energy I can feel, and then I get messages through seeing, hearing, feeling, or knowing.
Right.
Well, in this kind of case, I get a name and a picture, and 5 days later, I've got to fill out basically what would be the equivalent of a police report, and the detail to it. And so, it's been a great learning experience for me because I tend to be a feeler, so I'll feel different things. Well,
Right.
police need concrete things. They don't need how it feels. So so it's been a learning curve. But
Police want the
typically, how I do
left
it is I
brain
just
stuff, huh?
exactly. So how I do it is I go onto Google Maps after I get a sense of if the person is deceased or not, and vibrationally maybe where they're at, and then I go through Google Maps and just move through it until I feel the area that feels appropriate. And actually, we've had many cases. I've had 3 cases where the body's been in within 100 feet um,
Wow,
of
of the
where
coordinates.
of the coordinates. And
Wow,
then our
that's
organization has had, more success than that. But, sometimes we'll be a half a mile off, maybe, wrong color building or something like that. But when we offer the GPS coordinates, and it gives them somewhere specific to focus on, and then they can move out from those places.
kind of amazing how much Google has come into our daily lives, hasn't it?
Yeah.
That's a bit frightening, actually. I hope they don't go the way of Microsoft too much. Jeez. But that's the problem with power. It does tend to corrupt. That's for sure.
It can.
So tell us what's your most interesting story that you were involved in? That's a very interesting thing.
With Find Me, well,
Yeah.
there's so many interesting ones because everything is so unique. That's one of the things I love about my work, and I do so
Right.
many different things. You never have the same day twice. But there's a case here in Arizona where there's a young woman that was missing. She'd gone on an airplane ride with a friend of hers, and the plane just ended up disappearing into thin air, and they could never find it. They couldn't find where it dropped off. It was under radar because it was a single-engine plane, so it was not one that they had to report the trip and
Right.
things like that. And so we, as a group, we are all individual. We don't know what anybody else is doing. It's very individual. It's all volunteer. And so we each worked the case, and I got a specific area, GPS coordinates of where this plane went down. But I was